My stingy billionaire grandfather gave everyone just $10. Months later, his secret shocked everyone. The first time my grandfather gave me $10, I was 11. It wasn't a birthday. It wasn't a reward. It was Thanksgiving at his house. His actual house, the one with a circular drive and a gate that made a soft mechanical sigh when it opened. I remember because my father warned us in the car, voice tight, like he was trying to iron out wrinkles in the air. Be polite. Don't ask questions. Don't touch anything. He said it like we were visiting a museum that could throw us out. Inside, everything smelled like lemon polish and something expensive I didn't have a name for. The floors were pale wood, too clean to be lived on. His staff moved quietly, dressed in black and white, always looking past us, like they were trained not to see need. My grandfather, Walter Hale, stood at the center of it all like the house was an extension of his body. He was 70-something then. Silver hair, pressed shirt, the calm stare of someone who never had to hurry. He kissed my mother's cheek like it was an obligation, shook my father's hand like he was approving an employee, then turned to me. He looked me up and down. "Daniel," he said, like he was confirming a detail on a form. "How old are you now?" 11. He nodded once, reached into his pocket, and took out a crisp $10 bill. He didn't fold it. He didn't soften the moment. He held it between two fingers and offered it like a receipt. "Don't waste it." That was it. Everyone laughed like it was charming. My Aunt Marlene did that high-practiced laugh that sounded like a sponsor's commercial. My cousin Trent smirked and nudged his sister, like we'd all just watched something funny. My mother said, "Walter, you don't have to!" He cut her off without raising his voice. "It's plenty." I took the 10 with 2 hands, because I didn't know what else to do. My father gave me a look that meant, swallow it. Later, after dinner, I heard Marlene telling someone near the kitchen, "He's teaching them discipline. People think money is love." She said it with a bright smile, like she'd discovered wisdom instead of defending a billionaire who gave children $10 as a lesson. That pattern never changed. By the time I was 26, the $10 had become a family legend. Every holiday, every graduation, every wedding shower, Walter gave the same amount. A single $10 bill, crisp, always brand new. He liked the crispness. He liked that it proved intention. He wasn't poor. Everyone in our town knew he wasn't. His name was on a wing of the hospital. His face showed up in the business journal with words like philanthropist and visionary. He owned a private hangar. He once told my father, casually, that he was tired of commercial airports because people bump into you. But inside the family, he was careful, old-fashioned, teaching values. And if you didn't play along, you became a story he told about entitlement. The title of his lesson was always the same: I don't reward greed. He said it with that calm voice, the one that made you feel childish for needing anything at all. When he turned 80, he decided to gather everyone. Not at the house this time. At the Hale Foundation building downtown, glass and steel, with a lobby that smelled like money and carpet cleaner. It was the kind of place where security wore suits and called you sir. The kind of place where the family felt important just standing in the elevator. My Aunt Marlene arrived early and loud, dressed in a cream coat with a designer logo that didn't match the weather. She carried a gift bag that looked like it cost more than my rent. She kissed Walter's cheek like a performance. "Happy birthday, Dad," she sang. "We are celebrating you." My Uncle Dean hovered behind her, smiling too hard. He was the kind of man who always looked like he'd just told a joke that didn't land. Trent and his sister Paige posted stories on Instagram before we even sat down. Videos of the lobby, the art on the walls, the foundation logo. Paige panned the camera across the catered table and whispered, "Only at Grandpa's." They tagged the location. I didn't. I stayed near the window with my fiancée, Lena. She held my hand lightly, her thumb making small circles against my knuckle, like she could feel tension before I could name it. You okay?" she asked. "I'm fine," I said, because that's what I'd learned to say around my grandfather. Lena had met him twice, enough to understand the temperature changed when he entered a room. The conference room had a long table and floor-to-ceiling screens. At one end, an oversized portrait of Walter hung like a corporate monument. The staff moved around us with trays, polite and wordless. Walter took his seat at the head, hands folded, a small smile that never reached his eyes. He didn't waste time. "Hi, matey," he began, voice even. I've outlived most of my friends. I've watched this family expand and complicate. Marlene laughed softly at the word complicate, like it was adorable. Walter's gaze slid over her and kept moving. I'm not interested in drama. I'm interested in order. Trent leaned forward, elbows on the table, confident like he was at a pitch meeting. He had that same hale jawline, that same certainty. He worked, technically, at one of Walter's companies, a position that existed because Walter had created it. Paige checked her phone under the table. Walter continued. I've made arrangements. The room shifted. Everyone did the same tiny movement, sitting taller, smoothing clothes, suddenly attentive. Even my father, who had trained himself not to hope. Walter's assistant, a woman named Naomi, stepped forward with a small stack of envelopes. Not thick, not impressive. Simple white paper. Walter nodded once. Naomi placed an envelope in front of each of us. My name was written in clean block letters. Daniel Hale. Lena squeezed my hand. She wasn't a Hale, so she didn't receive one. Marlene's nails tapped the table as she slid her envelope closer, eyes bright. Dean cleared his throat like he was preparing a speech. Walter watched all of it without expression, like he was watching animals approach food. Open them, he said. The sound of paper tore through the room. Inside mine was a single $10 bill. Crisp, new, centered perfectly. For a second, my brain refused to accept it. Even though I had known. Even though the $10 was the pattern. Even though Walter never changed. Then I heard Marlene's laugh. Sharp, forced, too loud. Oh, Dad, she said, waving the bill like a joke. You are impossible. Dean chuckled, looking around to see if anyone else found it funny. Trent's smirk fell into something else. Irritation, maybe humiliation. Paige stared at hers, then at her phone, then back again like she expected an update. My father didn't laugh. He didn't speak. His face stayed neutral, but his eyes went somewhere far away, the place he kept disappointment. Walter folded his hands. $10, he said, as if he was explaining a principle to a room of students. For each of you. Marlene leaned forward, voice syrupy. Dad, is this symbolic? Because Naomi said you made arrangements. We're just... Walter's gaze stopped her. It's not symbolic. The room went still. I'm giving you what you've earned from me, he continued. $10, Trent scoffed. Grandpa, come on, you can't be serious. You make that before lunch. Walter didn't react to the disrespect. That was part of his power. He could absorb other people's emotion without flinching. I am serious, he said. I'm tired of watching people circle my money like it's a campfire. Al said, You're good with money, so I'm ending the fantasy. You will not inherit wealth from me. Marlene's face tightened, but she kept her smile alive like a mask. Dad, nobody is circling. Walter raised one hand. Not dramatic. Just enough. I built what I built. You benefited. Cars, schools, vacations, jobs I created. I have done what a man should do. Dean's voice came out carefully. Walter, are you saying there's nothing? Not even... There is something, Walter said. There's $10, Paige whispered. This is insane, but not quietly enough. My Uncle Dean glanced at the staff, as if hoping someone would intervene and say this was a prank. Walter didn't blink. You will walk out of here today, understanding that my money is not your plan, he said. If you want more, make it yourself. Marlene's laugh cracked. Dad, people are going to talk! Walter's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Let them! Then he turned his eyes toward me. For a moment I thought he might say my name, might single me out, might turn this into one of his lessons. I kept my face still. I folded the $10 bill once, then again, and put it back in the envelope like it was a normal thing. That small act, calm, controlled, felt like stepping out of a trap. Walter watched me a beat longer than everyone else. Then he looked away and stood. This meeting is over, he said. Naomi opened the conference room door. The staff moved aside. Walter walked out first, his shoes quiet on the carpet, leaving us with the $10 and our own reactions. The family erupted the second he left. Trent slammed his envelope down. That's it? That's the big announcement? This is humiliating. Marlene's voice went sharp. He's doing this for control. He knows we need security. Dean rubbed his forehead. We should talk to him. This can't be final. Paige had already started typing, eyes hard. I swear I'm going to post this. People will see who he really is. My father said nothing. He just sat there, staring at the $10 bill like it was a verdict. Lena leaned close to me. Daniel, she murmured, this isn't about $10. No, I said. Because even as they argued, I noticed something small and off. Naomi hadn't handed out a will, no documents, no legal briefing, no witnesses besides staff, nothing that matched arrangements. The envelopes were almost too simple, like the $10 bill was the point and everything else was happening somewhere out of sight. And I saw Naomi pause at the far end of the room near the credenza, checking her phone quickly before sliding it back into her pocket. Her face stayed professional, but her eyes flicked toward the hallway Walter had taken, as if she was waiting for a signal. My family didn't notice any of that. They were busy performing outrage. I stayed quiet. I did what I always did with Walter. I watched. I listened. I kept my hands steady. And I made a decision without announcing it to anyone. If my grandfather wanted to teach a lesson, I would learn it properly. Not by arguing, by collecting facts. When we left the foundation building, Marlene pulled out her phone and took a picture of her $10 bill against the glass lobby, captioning it with something sarcastic for her private family group chat. Trent walked ahead, jaw clenched, already calling someone, probably a lawyer friend of his, or someone he wanted to impress. My father drifted beside me in silence. Outside, the January air was dry and sharp. Lena's fingers slipped into mine again. Are you going to say anything? She asked softly. I looked back at the building, the Hale Foundation name on the front, the clean lines, the polished image. Oh, I said, not yet. Because I could feel it, something buried under the $10, something Walter didn't want discussed in a room full of people who were emotional and loud. And I knew one thing for certain. Walter Hale didn't do anything without a reason. I got into my car, put the envelope in the glove compartment, and drove home without joining the family's group call. That night, my phone buzzed non-stop, Trent demanding we stand together, Marlene calling Walter a disgrace, Paige threatening to go public, Dean sending a long message about strategy and options. My father didn't message at all. I didn't respond. I opened my laptop instead, pulled up the Hale Foundation website, and started reading the most recent annual reports, quiet PDFs full of numbers, board names, and donor lists. At 11:47 p.m., I found a line item that didn't make sense. And when I clicked deeper, I saw a name that made my stomach go still, not because it was shocking in a dramatic way, because it fit too well. I closed the laptop, took a slow breath, and looked at Lena. I think he's hiding something, I said. Lena didn't ask what. She just nodded once, like she understood the kind of person Walter was. I turned my phone face down on the table, opened a blank document, and typed the first line of a timeline. January 12th. Hale Foundation meeting. $10 distributed. Arrangements mentioned. No documents provided. Dead? Then I kept going, because silence wasn't submission. It was preparation. And Walter, whether he realized it or not, had just given me my first receipt. The Hale Foundation reports were written to be admired, not understood. Clean charts, rounded percentages, words like impact and legacy used generously. On the surface, everything aligned with Walter's public image: healthcare grants, education initiatives, strategic partnerships, the kind of documents journalists skimmed and donors praised. I didn't skim. I opened a spreadsheet and rebuilt the last 3 years line by line. Dates, vendor names, transfer amounts, board approvals. I cross-referenced them with state filings, IRS Form 90S, and the Foundation's own press releases. I didn't rush. I worked an hour before bed, an hour before work, weekends when Lena read on the couch beside me. I wasn't angry. Anger makes people sloppy. I was curious. The line item that caught my eye the night of Walter's birthday wasn't large. It sat under consulting services, an annual expense that barely registered compared to the 7-figure grants. $480,000. Hale Strategic Advisory LLC. The name was generic enough to disappear into noise, but the address wasn't. It traced back to a small office suite 2 towns over. No signage, no website beyond a single-page landing screen with a logo and a contact form. The business had been registered 18 months earlier. The registered agent wasn't Walter. It was Naomi, Walter's assistant. I didn't assume anything yet. Assistants did a lot of administrative work. Maybe she ran logistics. Maybe it was legitimate. I kept reading. Over the next few weeks, the family fallout grew louder. Marlene hosted a dinner to talk through options. I declined politely. Trent sent me links to articles about contesting wills, even though there was no will on record. Paige posted a vague story about toxic wealth dynamics that got supportive comments from people who liked her photos. Walter stayed silent. No follow-up. No clarification. No calls. That silence was the second thing that didn't fit. He enjoyed control too much to let chaos run unsupervised. At work, my manager asked if everything was okay. Apparently, Trent had complained loudly at a charity gala about family betrayal and ungrateful children, and my last name had done the rest. "I'm fine," I said. And I was, because every day I learned a little more. Naomi's company wasn't the only oddity. There were 3 others like it, different names, same pattern. Recently formed LLCs, consulting, advisory, logistics. All billed to the foundation, all approved under Walter's discretionary authority. All routed through accounts that eventually pooled into a single private investment vehicle. That vehicle wasn't listed anywhere public, but it showed up in a footnote. A quiet reference to a special purpose entity created to preserve capital flexibility. The entity's initials formed a name, WHA, Legacy Trust. Trusts weren't illegal. Neither were shell companies. But the structure was careful, designed to move money quietly, away from scrutiny, while maintaining a pristine public image. I printed everything. Hard copies mattered. PDFs could disappear. One Saturday morning, Lena watched me organize documents across the dining table. Colored tabs, handwritten notes, timelines. "You look like you're building a case," she said. "I am," I said. "I just don't know what kind yet." She nodded, then hesitated. "Your family, they're spiraling." "I know. Your aunt called me," she said. "She wanted to know if you were on Walter's side." I smiled slightly. "I'm on Fact's side." Marlene's call came the following week. I answered because ignoring her forever would have been noticed. "Daniel," she said, voice warm and brittle, "we're worried about you." "I'm fine. That's what worries us," she replied quickly. "You're being quiet. And Walter's people are watching. This isn't the time to isolate." "From what?" "From the family," she said. "From the truth." I waited. She filled the silence like she always did. "Trent thinks Walter's being manipulated. By staff. By advisors, Naomi especially. She's been around him constantly." I almost smiled. Almost. "That's serious," I said. "I know," Marlene said, relief slipping into her voice. "Which is why we need unity. If we move together, we can protect him. And ourselves." "Move how?" "Public pressure for one," she said. "A controlled narrative. Maybe a family statement. Something that shows we're concerned. Concerned about losing control," I thought. "I'll think about it," I said. "Good," she said. "And Daniel?" "Don't go rogue. These things get messy." After the call, I wrote down the time and content. Then I saved the voicemail she'd left afterward, repeating the same points more bluntly. Receipt. A week later, Trent cornered me outside my office building. He wore a tailored coat and that confident grin that used to work on everyone. He clapped me on the shoulder like we were teammates. "Man, you're hard to pin down," he said. "You disappear when things get real." "I've been working." "On what?" he asked too quickly. I looked at him. Calm, neutral. "My job." He laughed. Always the responsible one. "Listen, Grandpa's not well. Everyone knows it. And Naomi's got her hooks in him." "Does she?" Trent leaned closer. "You're smart. You see patterns. You want to help. We're getting legal counsel involved. Quietly. Preemptive." "Preemptive of what?" "Of him doing something irreversible," Trent said. "Like cutting us out." I didn't correct him. Instead, I said, "If there's evidence of manipulation, that should be documented." His eyes flicked. His phone sound exactly. Which is why we need access to accounts, to records. Whose? The foundation's, he said. You've always been good with numbers. We could use you. There it was, not concern. Not unity. Access. I'll think about it, I said. He smiled, satisfied. Good. Don't wait too long. That night, I received an email from Naomi. Subject line, checking in the message was brief, professional. She thanked me for attending the birthday meeting and said Walter appreciated my composure. She asked if I might be willing to meet for coffee sometime, purely informational. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I replied politely that I was available. We met at a cafe near the foundation. Public. Neutral. Naomi arrived early. She wore a gray coat and kept her phone face down on the table. Her posture was perfect. Thank you for coming, she said. Of course. She didn't waste time. Your grandfather values discretion, he noticed. You didn't react emotionally at the meeting. I didn't see a reason to. She nodded. That restraint is rare in your family. I said nothing. She continued, there's a lot of noise right now. People making assumptions. I wanted to clarify something. I waited. The $10, she said. It wasn't the whole picture. I assumed it wasn't. Her eyes flickered, just once. Walter believes in testing character before revealing plans. Plans! I repeated. She smiled slightly. He's considering a different kind of legacy, one that rewards patience. Who would be eligible? I asked. She met my eyes, those who didn't panic. That was the first time she sounded rehearsed. Is there documentation? I asked. Not yet, she said smoothly. Timing matters. I nodded, as if that made sense. After we parted, I didn't feel reassured. I felt confirmed. 2 days later, a package arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside was a flash drive and a printed note. Thought you should have this. And I didn't plug it in immediately. I photographed the packaging, the postmark, the note. Then I copied the contents onto an isolated laptop. The drive contained internal emails, Naomi's, Walter's, board members, subject lines about asset repositioning, family containment, narrative management. One thread stood out, dated 3 weeks before Walter's birthday. Walter had written, "They expect inheritance. Give them $10. Let them show themselves," Naomi replied. And Daniel? Walter. Watch him. He waits. Further down, a spreadsheet attachment. Projected transfers from the foundation into the WH. Legacy Trust. Total, $38.6 million. Timeline, 6 months. Conditions, no family objections. No public disputes. No legal interference. I sat back slowly. This wasn't stinginess. It was a filter. Walter hadn't disinherited the family. He'd baited them. And he was watching who failed. I closed the laptop and wrote one final line on the timeline. February 19th. Anonymous package received. Internal emails confirm deliberate test. Legacy Trust. Funded conditionally. Then I stared at the number again. $38.6 million. And one name appeared repeatedly in the beneficiary notes. Not Trent. Not Marlene. Not Paige. Mine. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. Because now I understood the real danger. Walter wasn't just testing character. He was setting a trap, and if I stepped wrong, the same receipts that could protect me could destroy everything. I saved 3 encrypted backups, then I waited. Walter announced the gala on a Tuesday morning. Not personally, through the foundation. A formal press release hit the local business outlets at 9 a.m., followed by email invitations to donors, board members, and, carefully, family. The Hale Foundation Annual Legacy Gala, celebrating 50 years of impact, special address by founder Walter Hale. Location, the Meridian Ballroom. Date, April 28th. Dress code, black tie. By noon, Paige had reposted the announcement with a champagne emoji. Trent texted me a single word, finally. Marlene sent a group message about coordinating outfits and presenting a united front. I didn't respond. Because I understood exactly what the gala was. It wasn't a celebration. It was a deadline. The internal emails on the flash drive made that clear.
The 6-month funding window for the Legacy Trust ended 2 days after the gala.
Walter intended to make a public declaration, finalize the trustee's direction, and lock the transfers while the room was full of cameras and applause. Public momentum as armor. And he wanted witnesses. Over the next 6 weeks, my family did exactly what he predicted. They panicked. Marlene contacted a publicist. I knew because the same woman emailed me, asking if I wanted to add my voice to a family narrative about responsible stewardship. I declined politely and saved the email. Trent hired an attorney who specialized in elder influence. He bragged about it at dinner with mutual friends, loud enough for someone to record. The clip made its way to me by morning. Paige went fully public. She posted a long caption about emotional manipulation and generational trauma, careful not to name Walter directly, but obvious enough that people filled in the blanks. The comments section turned into a courtroom of strangers. Walter remained silent. That silence became a canvas everyone else painted on. Naomi, however, stayed busy. Over the weeks leading up to the gala, she emailed me 3 times. Always brief, always professional, and always framed as inclusion. Walter appreciates your discretion. He hopes you'll attend the gala. There may be an opportunity to discuss future roles. Future roles, I replied minimally. Neutral language. No commitments. Behind the scenes, I prepared. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't hint. I didn't warn. I documented. I pulled the gala vendor contracts, public records, accessible if you knew where to look. I noted which AV company was hired, which firm handled live streaming, which law office was listed as on-site counsel for the event. Then I made calls. Not dramatic ones. Quiet ones. An old colleague who now worked in nonprofit compliance. A journalist I'd helped years ago with a dataset. A forensic accountant recommended by my manager. Someone who understood foundations and trusts without asking questions. That created problems. I shared nothing yet. I asked what they'd need if something crossed a line. The answer was always the same. Primary documentation. Chain of custody. Public context. I had all 3. 2 weeks before the gala, Naomi asked to meet again. This time, she chose the foundation boardroom, ensure authority, control the environment. She sat across from me, hands folded. Things are accelerating, she said. They are. Your grandfather is disappointed, she continued. He expected the family to handle this with dignity. I said nothing. She leaned forward slightly. He hasn't made final decisions. Not officially. But impressions matter. Impressions, I repeated. Yes, she said. Silence can be interpreted as alignment or independence. Her lips pressed together for half a second. Walter sees potential in you, Daniel. He always has. I'm aware. He's prepared to announce a successor framework at the gala, she said. Not a will. A stewardship model. Does the board know? She smiled. The board knows what Walter wants them to know. I looked around the room, the polished table, the framed mission statements. And what do you want? Her gaze held mine. Stability. Continuity. Protection of the foundation's reputation. And the money? That too, she said evenly. I nodded. Then transparency would help. She didn't answer immediately. Finally, she said, transparency is a luxury. Timing is strategy. I stood. Then I think we're done. Her voice sharpened just a degree. Be careful, Daniel. The spotlight magnifies everything. So does silence, I replied. After that meeting, I stopped responding to family messages altogether. The week of the gala arrived like weather. Unavoidable. The Meridian Ballroom was larger than it looked online. Crystal chandeliers, mirrored walls, a stage framed by LED screens. The Hale Foundation logo rotated slowly behind the podium during rehearsals. I arrived alone. Lena had chosen not to attend. Not out of fear, out of clarity. This is your family's reckoning, she said, not mine. I wore a plain black tuxedo. No pin. No statement. My family clustered near the front. Marlene wore a custom gown and greeted donors like she owned the room. Trent paced, phone in hand, eyes sharp. Paige filmed everything for her story, careful to catch flattering angles. Walter entered dusty. The room stood. Applause filled the space, loud, sustained, respectful. He walked slowly, accepting it without expression. Like applause was weathered too. Naomi followed a step behind him. The program began smoothly. Videos, testimonials, a montage of smiling faces and grateful beneficiaries. The kind of narrative that made donors comfortable. I watched the screens, but I listened to the room. I noticed when Naomi whispered to the AV director, when a technician adjusted the livestream feed, when the foundation's attorney took a seat near the stage. Timing mattered. Walter's speech came last. He stood at the podium, hands resting lightly on the sides. 50 years ago, he began, I started with a simple belief that capital should serve purpose. The room quieted. He spoke calmly about discipline, about resilience, about not confusing entitlement with legacy. Each word landed softly but carried weight. My family listened like defendants. I recently tested that belief, Walter continued, within my own bloodline. A ripple moved through the room. The credo sad, cameras zoomed slightly. I gave them $10, he said, not to punish, to observe. Marlene's smile froze. Trent stiffened. Paige lowered her phone. Some reacted with outrage, Walter said. Some with threats, some with public spectacle. The room held its breath. And some, he said, eyes scanning, with restraint. His gaze found me. I didn't react. Tonight, Walter said, I will clarify my intentions. Naomi stepped closer to the podium, ready. This foundation will continue, Walter said, and my private assets will be transferred into a trust designed to protect its mission beyond my lifetime. The screen behind him displayed the words, W.H. Legacy. Trust gasps applause. Phones rose. The trust will be stewarded by those who demonstrated patience, discretion, and respect for process, Walter continued. Marlene's hand tightened around her clutch. Trent's jaw worked. Paige's phone shook slightly. Walter raised one hand. However, Naomi froze. There is a condition, Walter said. One final clarification. He turned slightly. Daniel. Every head turned. My heart rate stayed steady. Yes, I said, voice clear. Walter gestured toward the side of the stage. Would you join me? I stood. As I walked toward the stage, I felt the weight of every eye. The cameras tracked me. The livestream counter ticked upward on the screen. This was his moment. And mine. I stepped onto the stage and took my place beside him. Walter leaned toward the microphone. Daniel has been quiet, he said. Observant. Careful. And because of that, I reached into my jacket. I didn't interrupt him. I simply placed a small USB drive on the podium. The room stilled. Naomi's face drained of color. Walter's sentence faltered. Not from surprise, but recognition. I looked at the audience, then at the cameras, then back at my grandfather. And calmly, deliberately, I said, before any assets are transferred, there's something everyone here deserves to see. The AV director hesitated. I met his eyes and nodded. He looked to Naomi. She didn't move. The room waited. And the screen behind us went black. That's when Walter finally turned fully toward me. And for the first time, he looked uncertain. The silence stretched longer than it should have. In a room built for applause, silence felt invasive. Walter looked at the USB drive on the podium, then at me. His expression didn't harden. It didn't soften either. It adjusted. Like a man recalculating risk in real time. Proceed, he said. Naomi opened her mouth. Psst, Walter. He raised a hand. She stopped. The AV director swallowed and nodded. We're live, he said quietly.
I didn't touch the microphone. I didn't need to.
The first email appeared on the screen behind us. Large, legible, time-stamped. From Walter Hale to Naomi Kessler. Subject, family expectations. Date, January 3rd. They expect inheritance. Give them $10. Let them show themselves. A murmur rolled through the room. Not outrage, not applause. Recognition. Phones rose higher. The second slide followed without commentary. A spreadsheet. W.H. Legacy Trust. Projected transfers quarterly tranches. Dollar amounts. A total at the bottom. $38,600,000. Then a column labeled Beneficiary Consideration Notes. Most names had annotations like reactive, public, legal threat, unreliable. One name had none: Daniel Hale, observant, non-reactive. It's suitable. I spoke then. Calm, even. These documents are internal Hale Foundation records. They include board communications, financial projections, and approval pathways. I turned slightly, addressing the room. Not my grandfather. The $10 weren't a gift. They were a trigger. Naomi took a step back. Another slide appeared. An email thread from Naomi Kessler to Walter Hale. Subject: transfer timing, family reaction escalating. Suggest accelerating trust execution post-gala while narrative momentum is high. Another murmur, sharper this time. Then the next document, a wire transfer authorization. Pay. Hey. Hale Strategic Advisory LLC, authorized by Naomi Kessler, amount $480,000. Followed by another. And another. 4 LLCs, similar structures. Same registered agent, Naomi. These companies, I said, were billed as consulting services. In practice, they functioned as conduits. I paused. Not illegal, but undisclosed and not approved by the full board.
That was the shift. The foundation attorney stood abruptly.
Walter, he said, we need to pause. Walter didn't look at him. His eyes stayed on the screen. Then on Naomi. She didn't speak. She couldn't. The final slide appeared, a single sentence from an email Naomi had sent. Never to Walter. If Daniel stays quiet, this locks. If not, we adjust. I turned off the screen. The room exhaled. I looked at my grandfather. I didn't bring this to stop you, I said. I brought it because transparency was missing, and because everyone here was being used as proof, as pressure, or as camouflage. Walter said nothing for a long moment. Then he stepped closer to the microphone. This gala, he said slowly, was meant to confirm my judgment. He looked at Naomi. It has. She opened her mouth again. Walter, you asked me to. I asked you to assist, he said, not to position yourself. He turned back to the audience. The legacy trust will not be finalized tonight, he said. All transfers are suspended pending independent review. The attorney nodded sharply and pulled out his phone. Naomi's shoulders slumped, not dramatically, but definitively. 2 members of security moved closer to her, not touching, just present. Walter faced me again. You could have come to me, he said. I did, I replied. At the meeting, when I asked for documentation. He considered that. Then he nodded once. The room erupted, not in applause but conversation. Donors leaned toward each other, board members whispered. Phones buzzed with live notifications. The narrative had shifted, not because I raised my voice, because the facts stood where no one could ignore them. I stepped back from the podium. I didn't stay for questions. I walked off the stage, through the ballroom, past my family. Marlene stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Trent didn't look up. Paige's phone was lowered now, forgotten in her hand. Outside, the air was cool and steady. Lena was waiting by the car. She didn't ask what happened. She saw it in my posture. In the days that followed, consequences unfolded without my involvement. The foundation announced an external audit. Naomi resigned effective immediately. The legacy trust was restructured, this time with board oversight and published disclosures. Walter didn't call for weeks. When he did, his voice was quieter. You didn't embarrass me, he said. You corrected the process. I wasn't trying to win, I said. I know, he replied. We didn't discuss money. We didn't need to. Some relationships didn't recover. That was fine. Others reset, on clearer terms. As for me, I didn't inherit control. I inherited distance, boundaries, the quiet satisfaction of knowing I hadn't been bought by $10 or by $38 million. I closed the timeline document, saved the final version, and archived it. Not as leverage, as proof. That silence, when used with intention, is not weakness. It's structure, and structure lasts.